My name is Tim. I'm a park manager with the Iowa DNR. We'll do questions a little bit later. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk to you about my favorite hobby for a while, which is bird watching and birding. And then we're going to actually talk more specifically about purple martins, because I've gotten to where I have this little colony of purple martins over here that we're taking care of. We're actually managing these martins. We do management on the martins, which means we do research. We learn about them. These birds can tell us a lot about nature. But first I wanted to talk about birding, because birding is cool, in my opinion. So you'll get a question sometime and somebody will ask you, are you a birder? You might say, what? They actually mean, are you a bird watcher? A lot of people don't even use the word bird watcher anymore. They say I'm a birder. And then instead of saying let's go bird watching, they'll say let's go birding, because that's just kind of a cooler way to say it, right? So my goal today would be to all of you to walk away saying I'm a birder. And you already probably are a birder, even though you don't know it.
I am. My grandma definitely is.
Okay, awesome.
My grandpa.
So lots of reasons. So if somebody, it's one of the fastest growing hobbies in the United States right now, bird watching, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. And I wrote down some of my favorite reasons why I like to be a birder and why I like to go birding. One of them is, like I said, I think it's a cool hobby. Be careful with that scope there, okay? Don't tinker around and stuff. And actually, just come over and have a seat if you would real quick. You might go over that bird scope a little bit later. But for one, birding is cool, I think, because they're fascinating animals. The colors, all the different colors of the birds, the different sounds they make. You can hear the martins, how they make what they call chortles, all kinds of different.
I like that.
And that fascinates me. I like birding because it's a very challenging hobby. It's hard to identify birds. Some birds are real easy to identify. You see a cardinal, you know it's a cardinal, but that's not true of all birds. There's all kinds of different families of birds that make birding very hard. You got to find out, is it a sandpiper? Is it in the hawk family? Is it in the owl, the raptors? Yeah, I mean, is it a duck? Is it a, that type of thing? So there's a lot of different families. There's flycatchers, there's vireos, and probably the swallows. The purple martin is a swallow. You've heard of barn swallows, right? The ones that nest around barns, build the mud nest. Well, the purple martin is the largest swallow in the United States. I brought on something to show you just a little bit how challenging bird watching can really be, and what keeps me bird watching. People keep a life list if you're a birder, right? Anybody, did Dan talk about life list today?
Yep.
That's a list of every bird you see in your life. So to me, it's kind of cool when I see a bird I've never seen before in my life. It gets to go on my list. I write down where I saw it and what date I saw that bird, and it's another bird to my list. So if another birder comes up to you and says, how big's your life list? You can say, my life list is I've seen 100 and some birds, So here's a good example of how challenging bird watching can be. This is a poster of all the warblers that you can see in Iowa. They don't stay here all summer or all winter. None of them are here in the winter time. They go south. But oh, you saw a red star? Nice.
And we saw the yellow.
The yellow warbler?
We also saw
The yellow warbler. But yeah, you can see, here's a yellow warbler. But yeah, look, they kind of look alike, don't they? But each one has its own field mark that helps you identify. But there's times I'm out birding and I'll see a warbler and I just don't get a good look at it, or they move around so fast, they're so small. They're always up in the tops of the trees, it seems. Some of the warblers are down low in the forest, but most of them are up high up and they're moving around. So there's times I see a warbler and I never really can tell what it is. But once in a while I'll see a field mark. Like we have these nesting in Walnut Woods. This is the yellow-throated warbler. It's got the black and white, but it's got the yellow throat. And that helps. Here's the chestnut-sided warbler. So if you see a warbler with yellow on top of the head and a little bit of chestnut color here, chestnut-sided warbler. The red start's pretty good to identify because it's got that. Here's the hooded warbler. It's got a little hood on its head. They're kind of named. Some of them are named after people. Some of them are named after what they look like. This is the black and white warbler, which looks a lot like the black pole warbler. See, there's just a little difference. This one has a black cap. This one just has stripes up here. I like the common yellow throat. If I see a little warbler with that black mask, hey, common yellow throat. You can use their sounds to identify the warblers, like the common yellow throat makes a sound that sounds like witchity witchity witchity. So anyway, it's a challenging hobby to see as many different birds as you can see. But I love the sounds that birds make. Let's see, maybe you guys know some of these bird calls. Anybody know this bird?
Yeah. Morning. Yeah.
Who's that?
Morning dove.
Morning dove, very good.
I knew it.
How about,
I saw a dove.
how about,
Oh, I've heard at my property. I don't know what it's called. It's not blue jay, the
oh, cardinal, good job. Let's see, what else do we know? How about this owl?
Yes. Great horn.
Great horned owl. You guys are birders. Good job.
Owl.
What's that?
Magic one.
You know a
What else can we
particular
do?
owl?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Barn owl?
Nice. I know, that's a barred owl, right? It's got the barring on the chest.
You might
A
want
little different than the barn owl. A lot of people.
Remember we
here's my barred owl.
tried the screech, the eastern screech owl, to try to call the birds in?
those kind
Yep.
of predator noises so we don't scare them off.
That's true.
Do you guys remember the
Fox
screech
would be a
owl call?
good idea.
Can you do that one that we tried to call the birds in?
Or the star thing you were talking about. Now I don't like that.
The starlings? Yeah. So, I love bird whistles. I try to. You ever heard this one in the morning around your house?
Yeah. Tweet, tweet.
Just two notes.
Tweet, tweet, yeah.
Anybody know that one?
Every
Little black
day.
and white bird about that big.
Bird.
Comes to bird feeders a lot. Chickadee. Good job. That's the black cap chickadee. There's lots of different chickadees in the United States. The one we have here in Iowa is called the black cap chickadee. Very good job on the birds, guys.
The more
All right, so
I know
here's the
I'm
last thing.
watching.
A couple more things about birding that I want to let you know about that makes it a great hobby, I think. Is one, it's pretty cheap. It's not like golfing where you go out and pay $50 for a day to golf. For bird watching, all you need is your own little bird book. I brought two of my favorite bird books are these two right here. Just about every bird you can see in the United States is in this book right here. And I like the one that's the National Geographic Bird Guide, Field Guide to Birds. So a lot of times, instead of being at home watching TV, I like my TV and stuff and games, but a lot of times I'll just sit at home and just page through this because you can just see how some of these birds look a lot alike. There's the killdeer. Look around inside here for the killdeer. There's been one hanging around on the ground inside here with the martins with the big stripes here. Got to have a bird book and a pair of binoculars, and that's all you need to be a birder. If you get a lot of money someday, you work somewhere, you can buy one of these spotting scopes, which is good.
some kind of electric thing that tells what they're saying, or what is it?
No, there's no electric in there right now. Nope, those are just all natural sounds you're hearing right there. I do use an electric drill to raise and lower the house, which I'll show you later. So yeah, for bird watching, I bought my first pair of binoculars at a garage sale. And then as I got better ones later. You want to look for a good birding binocular if it has these straight tubes. These are a little cheaper binocular. They work. That's what I started out with. But if you want to get a really good pair someday, look for ones that have the straight tubes like this, and they're not that, the curvy ones. But and that has to do with the type of prisms and the glass and the optics that are inside these. Basically, to use binoculars, you see a bird, you keep your eyes on it, and you bring the binoculars up while you're looking at it. If you don't see it right away, take the binoculars back away and find the bird again because it may have moved, and then you bring them back up. But that's kind of the simple way to tell you to use binoculars. But yeah, it's a cheap hobby, and here's my final reason, two reasons that I think birding is great. That one is because you can do it anywhere you're at. If you're in your classroom at school and maybe you're starting to get a little bit wandering, you're looking out the window, you might see a blue jay or a cardinal or some cool bird fly by. You can be anywhere, downtown Des Moines, looking for birds, on vacation with your family, driving down what should be a boring highway. Be looking out the window. You won't believe what you might see. A red-tailed hawk or something on a post. Hold on, I'm almost done. So you can bird watch anywhere you're at. I think that's a cool thing about birding. And I've seen birds in places you'd never think you'd see birds. So I'm always birding. All my cars have a pair of binoculars in it so that I don't forget them. And so anywhere I'm at in my car, I've got binoculars. And I'm usually wearing them anywhere I'm at when I'm outside. You can go to a baseball game if you're just sitting around. I'm birding. I'm looking in the sky and just seeing what's moving around. And then finally, bird watching will help you connect with nature. And you're a birder, you're not just learning about birds. Birds are going to lead you to learn all about nature. You might find a snake you've never seen before in your life, or a really cool wildflower, or whatever, a tree that you've never seen before. And so that's my favorite thing about birding, is it keeps me in connection with nature. It's a good excuse to get outside and learn about all of nature. And birds can tell us a lot about the environment, about climate. Since I've gotten into purple martins, there's little cool things like, you know, they talk about how the weather is changing these days, climate change. I'm trying to figure out how all this climate change is working with the migration of these martins, because they go all the way, if you look on that map over there, anybody know where they go in the winter?
South America.
All the way, yeah, South America. These birds fly over 5,000 miles in the fall. By the end of August, all these martins are going to be gone, and we have over 100 martins in here, believe it or not.
Right now.
And but now with this weather getting weird, like this spring, Ann came out and helped me because the martins started coming back in the middle of April, and it was snowing. We had 50 degrees. And one thing I'll teach you, and we'll just start talking about martins now. The martins are, I mentioned they're a swallow. They only eat flying bugs. They don't go to the ground to find bugs. They have to get bugs that are flying in the air. And when it gets below 50 degrees, there's no bugs flying. It's too cold for bugs to fly. And martins, when they come back to Iowa in the spring, if we get 3 or 4 days of 50 degrees or less, then they start to starve to death. I've had martins die here that literally starved to death because there were no bugs flying in the spring when they got here. So we can learn about nature and climate, all kinds of things when we start studying birds. And so what I've done for these birds, and I did this by learning about it. You know, the best way to learn about something is to read a book about it, like these books, and get with experts. That also, I'm in touch with a lot of martin people that have been working with martins for way longer than I have, and I've learned a lot from them. But yeah, read books, get with people, and ask questions. You know, that's the way to learn. But the one thing I've learned from other martin people is they've taught their martins how to eat flying crickets that you flip in the air. So I brought some crickets down here today, because another time martins have a hard time is when it rains all day. Like yesterday, it rained all morning. And so there were baby martins that probably didn't get fed for 2-3 hours in there. And so we came down and tried to feed them some crickets, and they were hungry, weren't they, Ann? We fed a lot of crickets. So today, I know we're supposed to get rain all afternoon. I don't know if it's gonna work. They may not be take crickets, but we're gonna go in and try to flip them some crickets today and help them get through. What's that?
I want to watch.
And then if we have time, we'll come back here and put the crickets down, and then we're going to chew a nest check. Another thing to do when you take care of martins is you manage the colony by taking the house down about every 4 days and looking at all the nests in there to make sure no babies have died. Can you think of any bugs that would get in the house that would hurt the mites? Did you say termites? Close. There's little things called mites that are little parasites. They're tiny, tiny little specks, and sometimes mites will get into one of the nests and kill all the babies. They suck the blood out of the babies, and so when we do a nest check, we look for mites. We look for dead martins. We look for. Oh, there's the killdeer just landed way over there in the back. What's that?
At the top?
Not no spiders. Spiders usually aren't a problem in the martin house.
I know one.
But we also just keep track of the number of eggs and how many have hatched, and make sure everything is going okay in the house. Sometimes hawks and owls get on these houses and kill martins. If you look on see those little curvy things on those gourds? The gourds are the little round things under the house. The martins love gourds to nest in. On some of the gourds, I have these, what are called owl prongs. That keeps an owl from, the owl will fly up to those holes and stick its talons inside the martin and try to get baby martins out of there, or the adult martins. So, and on the wooden house, I have those like rods sticking out. That keeps hawks and owls from getting too close to where the nest is. So, you'll see on the house, on the poles, those green things. I put those on there. Those are predator guards. The two things martin people are very wary of is raccoons and snakes. A
That
raccoon
makes
cannot climb those green things. They're too big around and they're slippery. So that keeps them, but they can climb the metal pole. So that's why we put those on. And a snake can get around that metal pole. But those big green things are just a big enough round. It would take a very big snake to go around that green thing. But it's still possible.
The
But
anacondas don't.
no anacondas here. We have bull snakes and fox snakes. A big fox snake might be able to get up over those green things. So far, I've been lucky. Because if a fox snake ever does get around that and get up in the house, those martins, he'll eat every egg and baby in the house overnight, and then all those martins are gone. So I do my best to keep snakes out of the martin
I'll
house.
put like 2 of the green
So if you guys want to go try to feed some crickets to them?
Yes.
And again, try not to think of this as like being at the zoo and feeding ducks. Hold on there, big guy. I try to look at this as we're doing it for an important reason, and the reason I've decided, I didn't do this with a group the other day because it was sunshiny out and there's plenty of bugs, but we're having very many rainy days here in a row, and the martins, while it's raining, cannot catch bugs very well. In fact, they just kind of stay here, so I'm hoping these crickets will help them get through all this rain we're going to have.